All right, how's everybody today? 3 seconds in, we're going to get started. Wait for people to come on board. Yada, yada, yada. Going to get through my last lecture today on the low carb diet nonsense and low carb lies and the misleading elements of low carbohydrate diets that's been going on for decades, as I've been showing in the research I've presented to you all in the last little bit. So just going to wait for people to come on board and then going to get going. So once you're on board, of course, let me know you're out there. You can see and hear me just fine. And then we'll wait for things to build and we'll get her going. So just going to wait on you guys for 1 sec and then we'll get started. So building an audience quick. Good to see. Good morning, Adrienne. Good morning, Tom. So, yeah, people are coming on board, fast and furious. So let's get her done. All over the world, we got people joining us, which is always nice. Hey, Mike. Hey, Jeff. Yeah, good. Let me know you're out there, and thumbs up and hearts if you can see and hear me just fine. This is going to be my last lecture on the low carb series, so I got a lot to get through, and I'm going to try to get through it with many pauses and things like that. Lately I've been making posts and people are asking me about my books and stuff. So we obviously have new people. I want to point out several of the books that we've been looking at in the last little while. Yesterday, The Cycle Diet, all right. Why, when, and how to use refeeds and cheat days to optimize metabolism and stay lean year-round. That's one of my books. It's also a course you can find at thecycle.diet, no .com, just thecycle.diet. Another one of my books, Beyond Metabolism, okay, how your brain, biology, and the environment create and perpetuate weight issues and what you can do about it. Another one of my books, all right, Understanding Metabolism, Truth About Counting Calories, Sustainable Weight Loss, and Metabolic Damage. Hey, Spain. Hey, everybody. Hard copies of the book you can order through Amazon, Tanya, but you got to click. There's a little box, I guess, to click hard copy instead of download. On my website, scottabelfitness.com, you can only get the books as downloads because it's too cost prohibitive to print them out and mail them. So another one of my books, The Anti-Diet Approach to Weight Loss and Weight Control. That's all about the mindset. Remember what I always say, quality of mindset determines quality of behavior. So a lot of the times people are stuck in stinking thinking when it comes to their weight issues and their diet issues. And then when you clear the mind, those things become easier. Another one of my books, Permanent Weight Loss, The Self-Nurturing Mindset, Habits, and Diet Strategy for Genuine Lasting Change. Training-wise, my Hard Gainer Solution, which we're turning into a course that should be available soon. My Physique After 50 book, all right, for people in my age demographic. The follow-up to that is The Aging Proposition, How to Take Care of Your Body and Mind After Age 50. And, of course, my big one, the second edition of the Abel Approach, Principles and Methods for Sound Training, etc., etc. So got that out of the way. One of the things I wanted, before I get into the lecture, I wanted to see, I don't like wasting my time, but one of the things I like to see, last week when I posted that study about maybe carbs aren't making us fat after all, I wanted to see when people shared that amongst their low carb lovers of the world, what the comments were. And this is where misinformation begets misinformation. I looked at some of the comments from the low carb flag waivers, and it was almost like they didn't even read the study. And like I said before, it's almost like diet as religion. If you present them with facts contrary to what they believe, then it's hear no evil, hear no evil, hear no evil. A couple of the comments that made me laugh about that article, one of the ones, the person said, "Oh, what a terrible design study." Well, within the first couple paragraphs of that article on maybe low carbs don't make us, or maybe carbs don't make us fat, one of the very first comments, if you read the actual article, was how well research that was. What a great confines, what a great research design and structure it was. That's one of the very first things pointed out why it was such a viable study. And yet this low-carb flag waver was, oh, what a terrible research design study. This is how misinformation gets passed along because other people just accept it as truth. Oh, wow, I like low carb, so it was a terrible design study. I don't have to accept it. One of the other comments that made me laugh, asinine, ridiculously asinine comments, was, well, I know for a fact low carbs work because I've done it twice and both times I've lost weight. Well, that's a contradictory statement. If you listen to any of my lectures in this series, the whole fact that you had to do the diet twice means it didn't work. I'm talking about sustainable weight loss. And one of the things I've presented week in and week out with Atkins and the rest of it is they can't find anybody who's been able to do it long term. So the moron who said, well, I've done it twice and it worked both times for me, if it worked, you wouldn't have to do it a second time. What it means is the first time you did it, you lost weight and then gained it all back. That's not a diet that works because a diet has to, one, be sustainable and two, serve the body. So this is just some of the more asinine comments that come out of the world of social media where everyone wants to pretend they're an expert. No one does their homework and they just accept things at face value. So those are some of the kind of things I'd like to alert you to. And yeah, so hopefully you're starting to catch on with don't accept things at face value. Go do the work. Tom's just saying a paleo fanatic. Yeah, that some people won't even watch my videos, and that's fine. That's fine. I understand that that's the way it works. But you know, I'm trying to present things to open minds, and that's all I can do. So there are people that are trying to confront me with this piece of research and that piece of research, but what I've been showing you over the last several weeks is what does the overall amount of research have to say, right? Not little pieces of research here and there. So for people with open minds, they're going to listen and they're going to make decisions. And for people who want to be led around by the nose, they're not going to do that. So, and that's fine. That's the nature of the consumer. That's the way the diet industry has survived for decades. And that's what I want to talk to you about this morning is the zombification of the masses when it comes to fad diet folklore. Everyone wants to think that their new modern diet is an upgrade when it's just more sophisticated marketing strategy. So everyone wants to think, oh, I'm on a scientific diet because I'm on paleo. Well, paleo has been debunked by paleontologists. So for misleading the public about what paleo is and what paleo isn't. So that being said, all I can do is present what I know after 4 decades of experience in the industry. I'll use research, but I certainly, I let science inform me. I don't let science dictate to me. I've been coaching and making physique transformations for 4 decades. I go with what works, okay? I don't pop around and bounce around from one research study to the next. If I did that, then I would have started and stopped drinking coffee 50 times now. So let's keep that in mind as well. So everyone can see and hear me okay? Are you all ready for me to get into this last bit of the lecture? Because there's a lot to get through. And I'll switch to the lecture side in a minute if we're all good. So must be a delay because I'm not seeing any thumbs or hearts or anything. Can you all see and hear me just fine? Just let me know on that, and then I'll get right to the lecture part. And yes, I am wearing a South African rugby shirt this morning. Fans and clients keep sending me stuff, so I'll wear it. If you send it to me, I'll wear it. So that's all good. Anyway, I am going to get right to it. I still don't see any thumbs and hearts, so I'm not sure if, I'm not sure maybe if the emoticons aren't working. So that's okay. I'm going to get right to it if you're all good. So let's continue. I just gave you some of the more ridiculous comments on the studies that I've been posting by low-carb religious zealots who just won't. Here's the thing, folks. Watch on social media. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. The fact is, when I presented that study, the researchers and the academics themselves said what a well-designed, organized, structured climate that study took place in. So you're not entitled to your own facts, even though you're entitled to your own opinion. And people keep confusing the two. So let's talk a bit about continuation about low-carb diets and health. I'm going to go, I can't see you guys now, so hold off on your comments. I'm going to go to my lectures. Just remember, based on last week, the biggest concern for keto diets, for instance, is heart health, ill health, general malaise. And if you go to the American Medical Association, you'll see a congruence of opinion there. But what about the thousands and thousands of antioxidants, health-promoting phytochemicals that are found exclusively in plants? Research shows taking supplements itself doesn't replicate the health benefits of eating healthy whole foods. And these micronutrients, carotenoids, lycopenes, bioflavonoids, phytic acid, isothiocyanates, and so many of the others that promote good health and fight disease, you're not going to get them by swallowing pills. So if you're on a low-carb keto diet, then where do you get these nutrients? You have to be eating an awful lot of veggies to get that. So Atkins started the money-making trend on that when Atkins recommended 65 plus vitamin supplements to go with his diet. In fact, he wrote, and I quote, "A proper Atkins dieter follows the entire program, including the supplements." And that's from the book Atkins Diet Revolution, 1999. And this is supposedly to fill in nutrition gaps. Well, it's hard to imagine Mother Nature had so many nutrition gaps, because if there were, in terms of survival of the species, survival of the fittest, then we wouldn't have been able to evolve at all. We would have died off years ago. So, and now here's the other thing. Why do you think Atkins on a low-carb diet is promoting 65 plus supplements, and then says in his book, you have to do the entire program, including the supplements? Well, those supplements as of 2005 would cost you around $400 to $1,000 per month. So imagine spending $400 to $1,000 per month when the book sells 15 million, the percentage of that that's going to buy the supplements. Do the math and see what a cash cow that is. And that's all low-carb dieting ever boils down to, is the politics of profit. So now to turn to control of cholesterol, for instance, here's some more misinformation and lies, low-carb lies. Atkins refers to 17 different supplements to take while on his diet in order to prevent elevated cholesterol. That's again in the 1999 edition of the Atkins New Diet Revolution. In regards to cholesterol, Atkins made wild statements, including, quote unquote, having scores of studies that showed significant improvement in cholesterol profiles in diets like his. But under the fantasy fiction writer rules of if you just say it, people believe it, he offered not one single citation to back up his scores of studies comments, not one. In fact, when he was challenged and pressed for citations, Atkins offered one of the most hilarious things I've ever read in terms of coming from a doctor who knows about research. He said, and I quote, "The papers I quoted were in a briefcase that I lost some time ago." And that's from T. Bernard, Consumer Guide, Rating the Diets, 1974, also in Carbophobia, page 41. So Atkins himself used the dog ate my homework argument, so he could say stuff but not have to offer a shed of proof. So in fact, when it comes to cholesterol, most studies show the opposite of Atkins' claims regarding the low-carb diet effects on cholesterol. Then if you want a slew of references on that, go to the book Carbophobia by Michael Greger, 2005, page 41. There's a list of references there, and page 124. There were so many references that I would spend the next 10 minutes just referencing them. So if you're interested in that, go there. That's the reference for the references. So a particular concern of mine has always been the effects of fad diets on women, because what I've noticed through 4 decades of experience, especially training people for physique contests, etc., the female metabolism and hormonal systems seem to be the most intensely, most sensitive to damage from these diets, especially low-carb keto diets. And one study of women showed that in just 2 weeks on the Atkins diet, women showed significantly elevated LDL levels, over 15% elevated after 2 weeks on a low-carb diet. LDL, low-density lipoprotein, is the more dangerous form of those levels. So you really want the HDL levels up and the LDL levels as low as possible. So in one study, despite weight loss, listen to this, in one study, despite weight loss, every single risk factor of cardio health got worse after a year on the Atkins diet. Every single risk factor of cardiac health got worse after 1 year on the Atkins diet. So was weight loss really worth risking your health for? The researcher in that study said this, and I quote, "Those following high-fat, low-carb diets may have lost weight initially, but at the price of increased cardiovascular risk factors, including increased LDL cholesterol, decreased HDL cholesterol, increased total cholesterol, increased triglycerides, increased homocysteine and fibrinogen levels. These increased risk factors not only increase the risk of heart attack and heart disease, but also the risk of strokes, peripheral vascular disease, and blood clots." That's from R.N.M. Fleming. The name of the research article is "The Effects of High, Moderate, and Low-Fat Diets on Weight Loss and Cardiovascular Disease Risk Factors." That's from the periodical Preventative Cardiology, issue number 5, 2002. Furthermore, while the LDL level, cholesterol levels in the Atkins group increased, which is a bad thing, in the whole foods vegetarian group, LDL levels were cut in half, dropping a whopping 52%. And for that, you can see Dean Ornish's article, "Was Atkins Right?" is the name of the article, and that's from the Journal of American Dietetic Association, issue number 104, 2004. So there's also the article that I've referred to the last several weeks from W.S. Yancey, "A low carbohydrate ketogenic diet versus a low fat diet to treat obesity and hyperlipidemia, a randomized controlled trial." That's from the Annals of Internal Medicine, issue number 140, 2004. So let me get to when Atkins is able to use studies and do what I call riding the research. One exception to the vast array of studies like the one above was a study Atkins Corporation paid for itself. Now you have to pay attention to my argument here because I'll tie it together at the end. Well, for one thing, we look at how studies are carried out. In that study supporting Atkins, there was no control group. It just put subjects on cholesterol lowering supplements. And even in that study that showed a drop in cholesterol, the drop was only a tiny 7%. And the final data didn't include 2 subjects who quit the study because their cholesterol levels went out of control. So can you say bad science? They didn't even include 2 people who dropped out because of the thing they were actually studying, which was cholesterol levels. So it skewed their data. And that's really, really bad science with no control group and then not including the results of everyone that was in the study. So you can find that from Esquire's article, "Experts Declare Story Low on Saturated Facts." And that's from the Washington Post, number 27, August 2002. Also from E.C. Westman, A.L., the article, "Effects of 6-Month Adherence to a Very Strict Low-Carbohydrate Diet Program." That's from the American Journal of Medicine, issue 113, 2002. So I'm giving you reputable, accredited, respected scientific journals from different realms, all who come to an agreement of opinion on low-carb diets and health, and it's not a good one. So for some other known reason is that the media in that barely reported at all that one of the research subjects in the study that supposedly vindicated the Atkins diet, the poorly designed study, one of the subjects was hospitalized with chest pain, and another one actually died. And yet no one reported that when Atkins was using that research to say his diet worked. In the widely publicized 2004 study I'm talking about, what was not publicized that you had to dig to find was the fact that 2 people in the low-carb diet section of the study didn't even complete the study because they died. Okay, one fell into a coma and the other dropped dead from heart disease. And don't you think that that's worthy of informing the public about? Like, oh, by the way, 2 of our participants just happened to die during this study. I mean, what the hell, folks? And this prompted the then director of nutrition at Harvard School of Medicine, only the director of nutrition at Harvard School of Medicine, but you listen to your personal trainer, they probably know more. And he said this, quote, "There is still much danger in the widespread fad enthusiasm for these kind of diets." You can find that quote in Carbophobia, page 43. See also L. Stern, A.L., and the name of the article, "The Effects of Low Carbohydrate versus Conventional Weight Loss diets in severely obese adults, 1-year follow-up of a randomized trial. That's from the Annals of Internal Medicine, issue 140, 2004, and from Emma Fumento, who's written a slew of articles dispelling, low-carb lies and nonsense. This one was, the article's called Hopeless Fad. Sorry, but the Atkins diet still doesn't work. And that's from the National Review Online, June 2003. So by comparison then, with the studies I'm giving you and where they come from in terms of respected journals and, director of Harvard School of Nutrition, by comparison, let me ask you then, who would you listen to? Would you listen to someone who was known as one of the most noted experts in nutrition in history, someone who authored over 750 scientific research articles, who wrote 10 books and was president of Tufts University? Not only that, but was recipient of 16 honorary degrees. Would you maybe be interested in this person's opinion? Because he said, and I quote, he said that going on this fattish, high saturated fat, high cholesterol, low carb diet would be playing Russian roulette with your heart and with your blood vessel health. All right. So you can listen to someone who's one of the most noted experts in research in nutrition history, or you can listen to your certified personal trainer, contest prep guru who knows better. Sarcasm intended here. So years from now, you may be paying a dire price for that trophy or that weight loss that didn't even stick anyway. So let's look at another article that reflects what I just said. That's from Jay Mayer. The article is called Diet Revolution, basically old hat, Washington Post, April 1973. In reference to the name of the Atkins book, that article is The Diet Revolution, is a reference to Atkins' book, The Atkins Diet Revolution. But see also the article, A Critique of Low Carbohydrate Ketogenic Weight Reduction Regimens, a review of Dr. Atkins' Diet Revolution. That's from the Journal of American Medical Association, number 224, 1973. So one more point, and then I'll take a look, see if there's any comments you guys want me to address. So over the course of time, Atkins and the corporation, they had to start backpedaling on some of his more ridiculous statements, like the dog ate my homework and things like that. He didn't have much choice when the wave of research and academic intelligentsia started weighing in on the dangers of his diet. And I use the word dangers on purpose. He started backpedaling on his glorification of pork rinds, bacon, and butter as the perfect foods, and he and the corporation started advising dieters cut back on saturated fats. Of course, this kind of backpedaling gave birth to future low-carb nonsense, kind of like Atkins Light or Atkins-like diets like South Beach, Paleo, etc. As an example of such statements, the initial Atkins diet revolution in the 70s said, and I quote, "There's no limit to any amount and any kind of meat in any quantity you can eat. You can eat as much as you want and as often as you want." And that's from the initial book, The Atkins Diet Revolution. But in the 1999 edition of his diet fantasy fiction, might as well be Star Wars, let's call it Carb Wars, he states that his diet, quote, "sets no limits on the amount of food you can eat." But when the corporation started backpedaling and backtracking on you can eat as much as you want anytime you want, and then when they were challenged by the media over their change in reasoning, the organization and Atkins itself lashed out at the media saying they were trying to discredit him. Yet he couldn't detract what he actually put in print. Those things are in his book. Check it out, The Atkins Diet Revolution, 1972, page 136, and then later the 1999 edition. So before I get to the zombification of the masses, let me just see if there are some comments here. I'm just back on the page, folks. Any kind of comments? Are you all still with me here? Yeah, I'm not, I don't know why, but the emoticons are not coming across the screen this morning. So hopefully you're all there. You're all still listening. I'll take a breath and I'll get back to the letter on the zombification of the masses. So by all means, folks, you should be sharing this video. If not now, then after, when you're listening to it. We need to get people set right, instead of pinballing from this piece of research to that piece of research to what the overwhelming nature of research since the 60s has been saying about low carb lies and nonsense. So let me talk here about the zombification of the masses, all right? There's a little fad diet history for you. And I'm not talking just low carb lies and nonsense, but fad diets in general. All fad diets make a fortune on offering foods avoiding whatever the current fad nutritional boogeyman may be. All right, from initially low sodium to low fat, and then low carbs to trans fat free, to high fructose corn syrup free, to gluten free, and all the rest. Diet and food industries capitalize on the zombification of the consumer to just mindlessly purchase according to vogue trends in the fad diet world. That's how you make millions of dollars. And I'll give you an example in a minute. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. In low fat and non-fat were the craze back then. And I watched this play out in supermarkets all around me. And the sociologist in me, which is my educational background, I just found that fascinating. So there was low fat to non-fat everything, especially low fat, non-fat junk foods, which made companies billions of dollars in revenue where there was no revenue before. Here's a good example. Nabisco. They came out during the low-fat craze with Snackwell cookies. You've probably seen and heard of them. And Snackwell cookies replaced Oreos as America's most popular cookies in those years. Can you imagine? In 4 short years, Snackwell cookie sales brought in $1 billion in marketing low-fat cookies as snacking well, hence the name. Other fat-free desserts actually created shortages in supermarkets everywhere. As Michael Greger points out in his book Carbophobia, when Nabisco then came out with fat-free Devil's Food Cake cookie, the company had to ration them out to stores because the demand was so high. Fights actually broke out among consumers, and some stores had to actually keep this fat-free dessert under lock and key. And that's from Carbophobia, page 55. Zombification of the masses, indeed. So later, I watched Atkins myself when I was getting into nutrition. I watched the Atkins Corporation come out with low-carb candy bars and low-carb bread, and I just shook my head at the nature of the consumer zombie like we the sheeple. For a while, there were even full low-carb shopping aisles and low-carb stores, all selling repacked, noted carb sources as low carbs and bread and pasta and snacks and desserts as all being low carb when they're notoriously carbohydrate sources to begin with. So it all becomes really quite ridiculous. And we see the same thing now in the last few years with gluten-free everything as well. But junk food is still junk food. And it's amazing that people don't see that. Even Oprah, when she talked about how she gained all her weight back, was because she thought she was making a smart choice when she was choosing organic blue corn tortilla chips. Well, that's just processed food with the word organic in front of it. It has no value in terms of weight control. When I was walking down the candy aisle the other day at the grocery store, the package on a certain brand of cherry licorice advertised it as fat-free and gluten-free. And that works on the consumer subconscious once you start buying into things as demonized food boogeyman. Oh, well, it doesn't have these very unhealthy ingredients. So the profit margin for junk food and processed food keeps growing by marketing hyper-palatable junk food as having some kind of healthy component simply because it lacks some other supposedly unhealthy boogeyman. So meanwhile, healthy whole food produce has much lower profit margins because it just doesn't cater to people's wish bias the same way. Food journalist Michael Pollan once referred to this as the silence of the yams, meaning that the truly most nutritious food doesn't have a label on it to market what it does or doesn't have in it. You don't see apples in the produce section with a big sign on every apple that says gluten-free, fat-free, starch-free, lactose-free, no added sugars or preservatives on the label. They have no label, and so it goes. But this is what creates what I call the zombification of the masses and the we the sheeple fad diet folklore. People want to buy in to folklore, and it allows them to keep relying more on wishbone than backbone when it comes to weight control. So in the unfriggin' believable category, the Atkins diet also played on the psychological nonsense, offered up a spinach salad recipe in his 1972 first edition of the Atkins Diet Revolution. This is hilarious and unfriggin' believable. but his low carbs only spinach salad called for an entire pound of bacon and 5 whole eggs. All right, a spinach salad with an entire pound of bacon and 5 whole eggs, but no croutons because they're bad carbs after all. The book, if you go back and find the 1972 book, the book instructed to use crumbled fried pork rinds instead of croutons. So crumbled fried pork rinds, a pound of bacon, and 5 whole eggs. And people ate this crap up figuratively and literally. And that's what I call the zombification of the masses. If it's in a book and someone's name has doctor in front of it, well, let's just go do that. And that makes no sense. I remember myself, like I said, I grew up during the height of the low-fat, no-fat diet craze. And I remember a multi-level marketing person approached me. She wanted me, because of my reputation, to help her sell her magic weight loss cookie. This is without a word of a lie. Here was someone with no nutritional background at all. She weighed close to 300 pounds, and she was multi-level marketing a cookie for weight loss, all right? Even at my young age then, I was struck by the irony of the whole thing. So she had this whole sales pitch prepared for me, as multi-level marketing people tend to do. She was trying to educate me about fiber. And this was the big argument with low-fat and non-fat back then. And that combined with the carbs in the cookie, and of course being so low in fat, well, this nutrient-dense cookie would make sure that you get full way before you get fat. She told me that she ate one for breakfast, and then she's fine till dinner, and at dinner she can eat whatever she wants. And she used a marketing pitch that one cookie not only tastes great, but fills you up for hours, and you don't even think about food. She said at the time she hadn't met anyone yet of all the people she sells them to, making it sound like she's sold to hundreds of people, who can eat more than 1 or 2 cookies without getting full. And it was funny because I sat down right in front of her and I ate the whole box right in front of her. And then I said, I'll let you know. And I said, I'll have to pass on your magic weight loss cookie. So, but this is what people want to believe in. They want to believe in food demons and food havens. So you got to watch out for all that kind of stuff because it exists. Gluten-free is the same thing. Paleo is the same thing. It's just changed its clothes. So you got to watch out for that. Changing gears, let's get back to health stuff. Studies have shown that many people who claim to be on low carbs because of diet trends, like the people I talked about who used to claim to be on low fat, for whatever reason, diet trends, they want to fit in, or just because of plain old ignorance, these people weren't really cutting carbs at all. More than one journalist or nutritionist has commented that thankfully, many people who claim to be on Atkins or low carb or keto diets clearly are not. And this may be one reason why we don't see nearly as many serious side effects and health issues that these diets actually lead to. And that's from this book. I don't know if you can see it here. Let me just hold it up. Let's see if you can see it there. Modern Nutrition in Health and Disease. All right. This is a 3,000-page nutrition textbook that I've read twice all the way through. So when people tell me I don't do my homework, can we stop the nonsense? And the one thing I do is my homework. So let's get back to that. So yeah, let's. I'm gonna get back to your comments. There is no such thing as carb sensitive, Adrienne. It's another made up word. Let's we'll get back to that. I want to get back to my study on this, and then we'll create. I don't know why I'm not seeing the emoticons, but that's fine. So what the accredited academics continue to weigh in on the dangers of Atkins diet and keto diets in general. The editors at Tufts University Health and Nutrition Letter concluded this, and I quote, "As to whether it's possible to follow the Atkins diet healthily or tweak it to make it safe and healthy, the answers are no and no again." And that's from the article, "Is it possible to follow the Atkins diet healthfully?" And that's from the editors of the Tufts University Health and Nutrition Letter, issue number 21, 2003. As Kelly Brownell, director of Yale University Center for Eating and Weight Disorders, said, so this is a director of Yale University Center for Eating and Weight Disorders. Rational people go on irrational diets simply because they're desperate. and that's true. And that's why we get the zombification of the masses and the we the sheeple attitude toward fad diets. Everyone, if you look at the people who are promoting keto diets and all this stuff that comes of vogue trends in the fitness industry, you'll always find them to be of the younger sect, because the older people that have been around don't fall for nonsense quite as easily. And the younger sect wants to think they're onto something new and different than what came before them. And they want to think that they're part of this new, more informed, more research trend. And usually, what I'm telling you is the opposite is true. So to sum up, as I mentioned earlier, the secret sauce, sleight of hand, rabbit in the hat magic of most fad diets is that they simply get you to eat less calories up front by demonizing certain foods as being off limits. Therefore, you're choosing from less food options and logically consuming less calories as a result. And while you're psychologically honeymoon on your commitment to these diets up front, then of course you lose weight in the short-term time frame. And then losing scale weight in the short term extends to your psychological honeymoon period commitment to the diet as well. And then they further convince you of the magic by dazzling you with carefully chosen research, often taken out of context, as I've shown you over and over again with Paleo and Atkins, combined with a lot of science babble as well. Things like carb sensitive, also taken out of context. But there are consequences to these diets that set up all these strange rules regarding good foods and bad foods or eating rituals. The fad diet fantasy is revealed by what you do when the honeymoon period is over. And the eat as much as you want of some specific food group, even if it's a magic weight loss cookie, is something that is no longer going to be appetizing or psychologically appealing to you anymore, because this is exactly how the reward centers of your brain really work. By restricting whole macro food groups, eventually your brain is programmed to start to want them. And that's all in my book. That's all in my book, Beyond Metabolism, all right, where I talk about this stuff over and over again. Our brains as omnivores are wired to look for food everywhere. And as soon as we say that one food is restricted, our brains are going to eventually want those foods. So as you lose weight up front, your hunger and cravings are going to increase down the road. But it's not increased hunger and cravings for more of the food you're allowed that you end up experiencing. It's usually increased hunger and cravings for some kind of other food that gets you away from the psychological diet monotony. All you can eat celery sticks or carrot sticks or whatever is only going to appeal to the mind for a limited time, usually while during that honeymoon period of high motivation on whatever diet you're on. So losing weight in the short term is kind of the rabbit in the hat magic trick. Keeping the weight off is where all these fad diet gurus claim no responsibility to you at all. That's when they say you lack the self-discipline and the willpower, because they know they're in it to make money. They're not in it to help you lose weight. And it's ironic to me that I'm the one who's attacked for saying this. So the only way you're going to ever take weight off and keep it off is by learning and embracing sustainable, healthy diet strategies and habits, the old tortoise and the hare. Things like regular meal times, regular sleep and wake times, never skipping meals, and choosing healthy, unprocessed whole foods most of the time. As Michael Pollan said, eat food, not a lot, mostly plants. And adopt, if you need a starting point, adopt my capital S directive, which is in my book, Permanent Weight Loss. That is to have no sugars, no sweets, no spirits, no supersizes, no second helpings, etc., except for one day of the week that starts with S. And that's kind of a portion of how the cycle diet works as well. So there's a way to get started. So you need to get over the psychological denial of diets as being something you follow for a set amount of weeks or months, like for some online transformation contest, or for your wedding or your high school reunion, or whatever other short-term goal you convince yourself requires a short-term diet commitment. Diet strategy has to be lifestyle, not something you hop on and off. Doing the latter will surely going to harm your metabolism eventually. And it's funny that, like I said, the asinine comment from that research I presented last week where the guy said, I know low carbs works because I did it twice and both times I lost weight. Well, if it worked in a real way, you wouldn't have to do it twice because you would have kept the weight off the first time and you would have been able to sustain the diet. The fact you had to do it twice tells you that it doesn't work. And by telling people you can eat an unlimited supply of whatever, that sounds great up front. But let's say you go to the movies and you can eat an unlimited supply of veggies. So instead of popcorn with butter, you have the popcorn bag filled with carrot sticks and celery sticks. You really think you're going to eat that right to the bottom? Carrot sticks and celery sticks. Your brain is wired to get sick of that in really short order. And that's how we survive. So let's keep that in mind as well. That's also in my book, Beyond Metabolism. So your diet needs to be composed mainly of fresh or frozen fruits and fibrous veggies, modest amounts of starch, brown rice, oatmeal, whole grains, potatoes, yams, and lean protein sources, and other whole foods like raw nuts or seeds. Raw nuts are calorie dense, yeah, but they're a wise diet strategy as well, because remember, it's not just about calories. Whole unprocessed foods count before calories do. So remember, whole unprocessed foods come before calorie counts, and that's what you need to know. A 2003 study, for instance, showed that eating nuts every day might actually help with weight loss and weight maintenance once weight is lost. And that's from Jay Sabate. The article is called Nut Consumption and Body Weight, American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, issue number 78, 2003. Myself, I eat nuts for 2 of my 5 meals per day as well. So further advice, go easy on the heavy sauces, creams, other condiments. Condiments are not a food group. Yes, artificial sweeteners make good sense. I'm fully behind the use of artificial sweeteners, especially if you have a sweet tooth. It may be controversial to some. This is where we have that research pinballing again, but it's not controversial to me. I interviewed actual experts in internal medicine and endocrinology. I study long-term weight control and optimization of metabolism. Artificial sweeteners are far better than any kind of pure sugar sources, natural or not. So the true and real healthy diet strategy, now listen to this, the true and real healthy diet strategy is neither carb-free or fat-free. A healthy and diet strategy for permanent and sustainable weight loss is always fad-free. All right, so find that on your grocery store food label. All right, fad-free dieting, all right, the avoidance of the zombification of the masses and nutritional boogeyman, that's how you're going to get to the promised land of sustainable long-term weight loss. So any fad diet that's going to result in short-term weight loss, that's how they hook you. But long-term health, long-term metabolic support and optimization, long-term sustainability without a crash or a rebound, you have to consider these things. So to the point, keto diets are absolutely the worst diet you could ever follow, even in the short term, if you really want to consider long-term effects like weight gain, metabolic damage, heart disease, kidney issues, eyesight problems, blood sugar issues, thyroid dysregulation, sex hormone dysregulation, and even higher risks of some forms of cancer. If there's a diet out there directly related to ruining your health and metabolism, you couldn't choose a worse option than some form of keto dieting, period. And it's funny that I noticed on Twitter, some of the people that were supporting me who said that about keto diets were instantly attacked by people who really didn't know what they were talking about, because they can quote one study or one group that suggested that keto diets were healthy. I'm looking at the totality of the research and what that has to say. So it's very easy to find accredited and respected organizations, ones that concern themselves primarily with health. It's easier to find their condemnation of various forms of low carbs and keto dieting. It's not just their organized, researched, educated, well thought out opinions in their condemnation of low carb dieting. It's also the amount of research citations that these organizations use to back up their well thought out opinions and conclusions. To wit, the American Heart Association uses 54 citations in its warnings about low carb diets. The once chair of Harvard University's nutritional department, he used 35 citations in warning people about the dangers of low carb diets. The U.S. Department of Agriculture used 198 citations. You can see why I'm not writing them all down. 198 citations, that would be all I would do is read citations. The American Dietetic Association used 16 citations in its condemnation of the Atkins diet specifically. Also in regards to Atkins, the American Medical Association used 56 citations to back up its condemnation of the Atkins low-carb dieting. You can find all those references and citations in Carbophobia book, page 67. So you can listen to your local gym or online fitness guru or social media noise all you want regarding an endorsement of low-carb nonsense, but they all have something to sell you usually. Often they just want you to think of them as experts. But all these above organizations, think about what they're about. They are about the pursuit of greater knowledge and health and well-being for people and consumers. Think of the people I just expressed to you, the American Medical Association, the American Heart Association. You really think they're trying to sell gimmicks to people, therefore they have a vested interest in whether you're low carb or high carb? All right, they're all about finding the truth, what the objective facts have to say. All right, so if these low carb approaches panned out, these organizations would be the first to say so, because they're all about preventing cancers and heart disease and things like that. Yet they can't, and they won't say low carb diets are beneficial or neutral, because what they found is these diets are dangerous to health and well-being, and I will add to weight control and metabolism. All of these experts I just referenced, referred to, categorized, and quoted, their informed, objective, professional, academic opinions and objective conclusions should matter much more than ill-informed opinions of people in the diet and fitness industry who have a vested interest in selling you short-term illusions and fallacies. The reality is much, much different to short-term want, okay? And I could also mention T. Colin Campbell, 50 years experience in academia, and his position on low carbs is also a condemnation of low carb dieting. Not to mention how healthy he looks in his 70s is unbelievable. So, and in rebuttal to defend their position so they can sell more books and food products, because it's not, again, it's not about long-term sustainable weight loss for people like Atkins and low carb dieters. Atkins at the time could only find 34 citations that supported a low carb position. Now listen to this. Ironically enough, at the same time Atkins found 34 citations to support low carb dieting, there was also 34 studies demonstrating the health benefits of cigarette smoking. So the fact is, low carb supporters like Atkins and these low carb diets that follow, like paleo, all these things, they're willing to distort and misrepresent the actual science to produce so-called evidence to back up their positions. For instance, it wasn't long after paleo nonsense took off as the next big thing in fad dieting that actual paleontologists examined what was being said about the diet and called out paleo nutritionists as misrepresenting the facts of Paleolithic man and how they lived, and misrepresenting these facts altogether. So for that, you can see my books, Understanding Metabolism and Beyond Metabolism, and the TED Talks about debunking the paleo diet. So the fact is, just like the tobacco industry, Atkins popped itself up by paying scientists and researchers sympathetic to his marketing points. He funded so-called independent organizations to give misleading impressions of legitimate and objective science and research when none of that was happening at all behind the scenes. Their goal is to make it pass the smell test of legitimate research when it's anything but legitimate research. And I saw the same kind of thing here, personal experience, when I was a writer and paid endorser for supplement companies. And they would fund research only if that research supported their marketing, or they would just discontinue funding. And sometimes this does find its way into academic journals, but it's devious from the get-go. Dr. Atkins' widow even said that the Atkins Corporation gave millions of dollars to researchers to quote unquote prove Atkins right. And that's in Carbophobia, page 72. But if you understand academia, folks, oops, that's a Freudian slip, because research funding is supposed to search for truth and objective conclusions, not prove someone right or wrong, all right? But I saw the same thing in my involvement with supplement companies. How it works is like this. For supplement companies, a company would fund several studies for its fat burner. If 9 out of 10 studies showed no effects and only one showed may burn fat, then they just represent that one study to the public, and they don't tell you about the other 9 out of 10 that showed no effects. Then they use the term clinically proven over and over again to drum into your heads. This is how it works down through time with low carbs, low fat, low sodium, gluten-free, all the other rest of it. So for a list of studies that Atkins Corporation funded, see Carbophobia, page 72, 73. The list is extensive, but even most of these studies couldn't stand up to closer academic scrutiny. For instance, a now famous comparison study between low fat and low carb that Atkins Corporation claimed supported their low carb lies and nonsense. This study didn't measure up when they looked at it more closely. So under scrutiny, this study that appeared in the New England Journal of Medicine, Atkins got plenty of mileage out of this to support his diet. And, he used that study to get press, the public press media to present it as a reflection of the value of low-carb dieting. And this heavily influenced public opinion, but it was misinformation regarding low-carb dogma. And you can see an article by F.F. Samaha. It's called A Low Carbohydrate as Compared with a Low-Fat Diet in Severe Obesity, New England Journal of Medicine, number 348, 2003. And then the first thing that showed up upon closer academic inspection is that the people in the control group who were supposedly low-fat dieters, they weren't really low-fat at all. In fact, it doesn't look like they were following any kind of calorie controls. And even within that, the long-term effects of the study showed that in the end, a low-carb diet, and I quote, provided no weight loss advantage in regards to long-term results. Now keep in mind, this was still comparing low carbs to a group that wasn't really dieting at all. So in fact, no long-term studies show an advantage of low-carb dieting for weight loss and weight maintenance. So many people can't stay on these diets long-term to begin with. But the longer the long-term studies are, the more disastrous are the results for low carbs and keto diets. In every single long-term study ever done, true low-fat diets show better results than do low-carb diets. Low carbs show little results at all in regards to long-term weight loss. That's why people go on them and off them and claim that it works when I go on them. Well, you can't sustain it, so it doesn't work. So if you want to see references for long-term studies, Carbophobia, page 143 to 146 in the reference section, there's at least 100 there that you can look at. And remember, previously I talked about the National Weight Control Registry, which continues to show that a healthy whole foods, truly low-fat diet, less than 25% fat, combined with exercise, is the only real true formula for long-term sustainable weight control. And I remind you again that the registry reviewer said this, and I quote, almost no one who loses weight and keeps it off long-term is on a low-carbohydrate diet. The registry reviewers, and I quote, almost no one who loses the weight and keeps it off long-term is on a low-carbohydrate diet. So again, studies that look like they support Atkins and other low-carb approaches are almost always short-term studies, and many of these has extremely limited sample sizes to make a study relevant, and some had no control groups at all, which basically makes a research study completely useless. So I'm going to pause there. I might even stop there. I have more to go about risk factors, so I'm going to pause there because I've been yakking, and I don't want you guys to burn out at the sound of my voice. So let me go back. Troy saying, just let me find these. Jodakai, I'm not going to answer that question this week. This week is about diets. I'm not about follow the trend here, follow the topic and the subject matter. I can answer that another time. Troy says, learned this lesson last weekend when my sister-in-law told me she was on a low-carb Atkins-like diet. I started preaching, and then when I heard what she eats, she was not low-carb at all, just sensible. Yeah. So that's a lot of people, and then they go on and spout off, that they're doing this or that. So, yes, lots of comments on the South African shirt. That's because you fans keep sending me stuff to wear, so of course I'll happily wear it. So, short-term and long-term, like Lily says, there's a huge difference, and I'm talking about sustainable weight loss I lived in the world of magic tricks for all the times that I was helping, when I was known as the trainer of champions. I was all about peaking physiques for the short term. I could do that quite simply. So that wasn't difficult for me at all. So, but then what happens? None of these diets want to lay claim to, but then what happens? And that's what I want to talk to people about. So, yep, as NK says, get started with no sugar, no sweets, no second helpings, no supersizes, eat non-processed foods, keep it simple. That's the capital S directive. And then eat none of those foods except one day of the week that starts with S. You can find that in several of my books, the expanded version of the capital S directive. But that's a place to get started. Instead of counting calories and macros and being overwhelmed by it all, just follow the capital S directive. So if you have nut allergies, well, most people aren't allergic to all of them. Most people are just allergic to one, maybe two. If that's the case, find out what ones you can handle. You can switch to seeds. And you could become sort of lacto-ovo in your approach. So you could eat egg whites and things like that, and some dairy products like yogurt, cottage cheese, things like that. So, and yes, whole non-processed foods come before calorie counting. That is always the healthy way to go. There's too much North American diet mentality madness in terms of counting calories. I did that post yesterday, which was massively successful, about showing me eating at Cinnabon, and I was shocked. There I am at Cinnabon, and right over where they sell the seating area where you can eat is all the calories of the different sizes of their Cinnabons, and I had two that were 960 calories each, and I could hear the table beside me talking about how guilty they felt for having a mini Cinnabon, and here I am on my refeed week because of the cycle diet, trying to get in as much energy dense food as I can. So I had two of these almost 1,000 calorie Cinnabons, and that was after having breakfast. But people don't understand any of this stuff about metabolism. They think it's all about calories, and it's just not. So calories come far down the list, and for stuff on that, you can see my books, Understanding Metabolism and Beyond Metabolism and things like that. So Perry's just making the point, like, yeah, the paleo diet people, as if they actually interviewed cavemen. That's a funny anecdote there. So I'm just looking. Wow, I didn't know that. So Jodakai's just writing, even The Rock, Dwayne Johnson said carbs are your friend. I'm surprised. Usually a lot of the times actors and people in Hollywood are as misinformed as the rest of the public. That's another way that all this nonsense gets passed along, because they think if a celebrity did it, they must know what they're doing. But usually it's the opposite. So those kind of things as well. So I do have a little bit to get over with, but what I'll probably do is just finish that little bit next week, and then I can get to just some questions and answers. So there's other stuff, but I've been yakking way too long. It's not much. It's just a few things about other health factors. I think I'll get on with that next week, and then and it'll only be like 5 minutes, folks, and then I can get to next week. We can get to some more questions and answers and things like that. So one of the things, though, I want to get to is coming up. I've got the Hard Gainer Solution. This book. Where did I put it here? My Hard Gainer Solution, #1 bestseller on Amazon. We've turned that into a course, and we're finalizing that right now. Over 100 videos, probably maybe more like 150 by the time we get done, when that is going to be ready as a course. Should be coming up soon. And then my Busy Woman's Train at Home diet, Train at Home and diet program. We're working on that as well to have that ready, hopefully as well in the near future, right after the Hard Gainer, and that is extensive. That's also well over 100 videos of instruction and things like that for busy women to train at home and diet at home, because women are busy, especially people with young kids at home. traveling to and from the gym is time they don't have. So that was also a #1 best-selling book, turning that into a real extensive detailed course with, like I said, well over 100 videos as well, starring the lovely Krista. So that's projects we're working on for the near future. These are big end products, so they're not going to be cheap, but they're going to be immensely detailed. So keep that in mind as well. So that's it for this week, folks. Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Try not to get your sources of information just from surfing social media commentary. A lot of the times you're going to find people who aren't educated in anything, and just be someone has competed in a physique show and maybe even won a physique show. That doesn't mean that they suddenly have a grasp on the level of knowledge it takes to help you with what your goals are. So keep all those things in mind. Any other comments for this week? I'm not sure why my emoticons aren't working, but hopefully you're sending them across the screen because I can't see them. So next week I'll just there's maybe 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes of some more research about low carb nonsense. And I'll present that to you, and then I'll be able to get to your questions and answers on other matters, whatever you're interested in. But please, by all means, spread the word, hit your share button, get this stuff out there, I try to disseminate the truth, and the value in coaching is something I take seriously, so I do my homework. So anyway, folks, I will see you all next week, and spread the word, and be fit, have fun, and see you all later.